Most people don't have a bad habit problem. They have an identity problem. And the difference between those two things is the difference between someone who quits smoking for 3 weeks and someone who never touches a cigarette again. It's the difference between a man who loses 20 pounds only to gain back 30 and a man who quietly, almost without noticing, rebuilds his entire body and never goes back. It's the difference between change that looks like fireworks, bright, dramatic, gone by morning, and change that looks like a river cutting stone, slow, invisible, unstoppable. The bad habit you're carrying right now, whether that's the food you reach for at night, the phone you can't put down, the drink you promised yourself you'd stop, the procrastination that's eating your life, you've probably tried to break it before. Maybe more than once. Maybe so many times that you've stopped counting, because the counting itself has become its own kind of shame. You are not weak for this, but you are using the wrong system. And that system, the one that's been sold to you by every motivational speaker, every 30-day challenge, every self-help bestseller, is built on a fundamental misunderstanding of how the human brain actually works. It tells you that transformation requires intensity, that you need to commit fully, burn the boats, flip your life upside down on a Monday. It treats change like a war you declare, dramatic, total, beginning with a battle cry. The Japanese understand something different. They've understood it for centuries, not as a motivational concept, not as a productivity trend, but as a philosophy woven into the fabric of how they live, how they work, how they recover, and how they endure. The philosophy is called Kaizen, and if you are willing to sit with it, really sit with it, it will not just help you break a bad habit, it will change the way you see yourself. But I need to warn you about something first. What I'm about to share goes against almost everything you've been taught about personal change. It will sound too small. It will sound almost insulting in its simplicity. And somewhere in the middle of this video, you're going to feel a pull to dismiss it, because the human mind is deeply suspicious of things that seem too easy. We've been conditioned to believe that the size of the struggle equals the size of the reward. That suffering is the price of transformation. The Japanese figured out that this belief is the very thing that's been destroying you. Stay with me. Think about the last time you decided to change something about yourself. Really think about it. You woke up one morning, maybe after a night you're not proud of, maybe after stepping on a scale, maybe after a doctor's appointment, maybe after looking at yourself in the mirror a moment too long, and something cracked open inside you. You felt it. That urgency, that clarity, that feeling of absolute certainty that this time would be different. So you went all in. You threw away the junk food. You downloaded the fitness app. You deleted social media from your phone. You set 7 alarms. You told people about your plan because making it public felt like accountability. You rearranged your entire schedule, restructured your mornings, made a vision board, wrote a list of reasons why. And for a week, maybe 2, it worked. You felt different, lighter, in control, like the person you'd always meant to be was finally arriving. Then life happened. A long day at work, a fight with someone you love. A moment of stress, so ordinary, so mundane, not even a crisis, just a regular hard afternoon, and your hand was in the bag, or on your phone, or around the bottle, before your brain had even registered the decision. And the familiar voice came back. The one that says, "You always do this. You can't change. This is just who you are. This is not a character flaw. This is biology." A researcher at Stanford, who spent years studying habit formation, found that the overwhelming majority of self-improvement attempts fail not because people are undisciplined or unmotivated, but because they try to change too much, too fast. The human brain, this extraordinary machine inside your skull, is hardwired to treat radical change as a threat. Not a challenge, not an opportunity, a threat. The amygdala flags massive behavioral shifts the same way it flags physical danger. It triggers resistance. It sends distress signals. It creates the cravings and the discomfort that drag you back because, from your brain's perspective, going back to the old pattern is survival. This is why you failed before. Not because you didn't want it badly enough, but because your brain, which is on your side, fought your dramatic change the same way your immune system fights a foreign body. What the Japanese discovered, not recently, not as some corporate innovation, but across centuries of philosophy, craft, and cultural wisdom, is that there is a way to change so gradually that the brain never sounds the alarm. A way to introduce new behaviors so quietly that resistance never has a chance to mobilize. A way to become a fundamentally different person without ever triggering the self-defense mechanisms that have sabotaged you every time before. And the most disorienting part? The changes are almost embarrassingly small. That's exactly why they work. Before we go any further, if this kind of content speaks to something you've been carrying, I want to ask you to subscribe if you haven't already. Not for the algorithm, but because the ideas we explore here take time to sink in, and you're going to want to come back. What I'm building on this channel is a library of practical philosophy, ancient wisdom brought into the specific problems of modern life. If that's something you need, hit subscribe. Let's keep going. The year is 1945. Japan has just lost the most devastating war in its history. 2 of its cities have been reduced to ash and memory by weapons so new the world barely had language for them. The country is in ruins, economically, structurally, psychologically. Millions are dead, infrastructure is gone, industry has collapsed. The Japanese people are looking at a future that, from any rational vantage point, appears almost impossible. What happened next is one of the most remarkable recoveries in modern history. Within decades, Japan went from a destroyed nation to an economic powerhouse, producing some of the highest quality automobiles, electronics, and manufactured goods on Earth. American companies that had once led their industries were being outcompeted by companies they'd barely heard of. Business schools scrambled to understand it. Economists flew to Tokyo to study it. What they found wasn't a secret weapon. It wasn't a genius inventor or a revolutionary technology. It was a philosophy, a way of working and living built on one idea: continuous, incremental improvement. Every worker, at every level, was encouraged to ask one question every single day. What is one small thing I can do better today than I did yesterday? Not a revolution, not a restructuring. One small thing, then another, then another. They called it Kaizen. Kai, meaning change. Zen, meaning good. Change for the better. But the beauty of the word, the part that translation loses, is that it carries no sense of urgency, no deadline, no finish line. Kaizen is not a sprint. It is a philosophy of direction. It says, face the right way and keep moving. One step, then another. This is what rebuilt Japan. And a man named Masaki Imai spent his life making sure the world understood it. In 1986, he published a book that introduced Kaizen to the Western business world. And what he found was that the principle wasn't just about manufacturing. It wasn't just about efficiency or quality control. It was about human nature, about the way lasting change actually happens, not through explosive moments of transformation, but through the quiet accumulation of tiny, consistent improvements. 1% better today than yesterday. That's all. Just 1%. Here's the mathematics of that, and it's worth actually sitting with. If you improve by just 1% every day for a year, you don't improve by 365%. You don't even improve by 3 or 4 times that. You improve by 3,778%. 37 times better than where you started. Because improvement compounds. 1% doesn't stay 1%. It becomes the new baseline from which the next 1% grows. And the one after that grows from that. But here's what that math really means for the person watching this. It means that your bad habit, however old, however entrenched, however many times it has survived your attempts to destroy it, can be dismantled. Not by fighting it, not by overpowering it with willpower that runs out, but by building something so quietly beside it that one day you look over and the habit is simply no longer the loudest thing in the room. Kaizen doesn't attack the bad habit directly. It builds the good one so gradually, so consistently, that the bad habit slowly loses its footing. Now I need to tell you about something the productivity world almost never talks about when they mention Kaizen. Because most people, when they hear 1% better every day, immediately start doing math on their problems. They think, okay, so I'll do 5 minutes of exercise instead of 0. I'll eat 1 less cookie. I'll scroll 20 minutes less. Tiny improvements. Great, got it. And then they still fail. Not because the small steps were wrong, but because they forgot the most important question. Small steps toward what? Here's what I mean. Imagine you're trying to stop drinking soda, and you apply Kaizen. You cut from 3 cans a day to 2.5. Perfect. 1% better. You do it. You feel good. But when the craving hits, when the stress comes, and your body is screaming for that particular relief, what's pulling you toward the soda is not really the soda. It's the person who reaches for the soda. It's the identity. Deep in your brain, some version of you still sees yourself as a person who drinks soda when things get hard. And until that identity changes, the habit has a home to come back to. This is where Kaizen meets something even deeper in Japanese philosophy. And this is where most explanations of Kaizen stop, right before the part that actually matters. The Japanese understand that behavior follows identity, not the other way around. You do not act your way into a new identity by doing new things and hoping you eventually believe it. You build a new identity first, or more precisely, you build it simultaneously, one small piece of evidence at a time, until the new behaviors aren't things you're trying to do, but things you are. Let me say that again, because it's the hinge on which everything else turns. Every time you follow through on a small commitment you've made to yourself, you cast a vote for a new identity. 1 glass of water in the morning. That's not just hydration, that's evidence. Evidence that you are the kind of person who keeps promises to themselves. 5 minutes of walking, that's not fitness. That's a vote. A vote cast for the identity of someone who moves, someone who takes care of their body, someone who doesn't let the gap between where they are and where they want to be stop them from taking one small step. And when you've cast enough votes, the identity shifts. Not dramatically, not all at once, but the shift happens, and when it does, it's permanent, in a way that no motivational speech, no 30-day challenge, no dramatic commitment has ever been. Because now the behavior isn't effort, it's expression. You're not trying to be healthy, you're expressing who you are. The Japanese have been living this for centuries. You can start today. But let me stay with the failure for a moment, because I think we rush past it too quickly. If you've tried to break a habit before, and almost everyone watching this has, there's a specific moment I want you to recall. Not the moment you gave in, the moment after you gave in. That moment when you'd eaten the thing, or missed the workout, or said yes when you meant no, and the familiar spiral started in your mind. The voice that said, "You did it again, you're doing it again, you always do this." That voice is not the truth. But it sounds like the truth, doesn't it? Because it's been right so many times before, and so you believe it, and the belief becomes a prophecy, and the prophecy fulfills itself. One bad choice becomes an excuse for another. The diet is ruined, the streak is broken, the whole plan is off. And you go back, not just to the habit, but to the full force of it, sometimes worse than before. The Japanese have a philosophy for this moment, and it's one of the most quietly radical ideas I've encountered. It's called Wabi-Sabi. Wabi-Sabi is the Japanese aesthetic of imperfection. The philosophy that beauty is not found in flawlessness, but in things that are incomplete, impermanent, imperfect. It's the crack in a ceramic bowl repaired with gold, a technique called kintsugi, where the repair itself becomes the most beautiful part of the object. The breakage isn't hidden, it's honored, because the breakage is part of the history, part of the story, part of what makes the object irreplaceable. Now bring that to your habits. You ate too much on Saturday. So what? That does not erase the 6 days you stayed the course. You missed your morning walk. So what? That does not undo the weeks of movement that came before it. The fall does not define the practice. The practice is the whole arc, the commitment, the consistency, the fall, and the return. Wabi-Sabi says, the return is not a defeat, the return is the practice. The return is where the real discipline lives. Most Western thinking about habit change treats failure as a fracture, something that breaks the structure and requires you to start over. Japanese philosophy treats failure as a fold, the inevitable bend in a material that's still intact. A fold doesn't end the journey, it's just part of the shape. When you understand this, really understand it, not just intellectually but in your gut, something shifts. You stop being afraid of the stumble. And when you stop fearing the stumble loses most of its power. Because half the reason we spiral after one bad choice is the catastrophizing that follows it. Remove the catastrophe, and one bad choice is simply one bad choice. Tomorrow is exactly what it was before. Drink your water, take your walk, keep going. Now I want to ask you something, and I want you to actually sit with it for a moment before you scroll past. What is the real reason you want to break this habit? Not the surface reason, not, I want to lose weight, or I want to be more productive, or I want to drink less. Those are outcomes. I'm asking about the why, beneath the why. The reason that's so personal it might feel embarrassing to say out loud. The reason that, If everything else stayed the same and only this one thing changed, would make your life feel fundamentally different. Because here's what I've seen happen, again and again, to people who try to break habits using only willpower and method. They run out of fuel. Willpower is finite. Method requires motivation to maintain. But purpose, real, specific, personal, embarrassingly honest purpose, that doesn't run dry. That's a renewable resource. That's what the Japanese call Ikigai. Ikigai is often translated as reason for being, your purpose, the thing that gives your existence its direction. And in the context of habit change, your Ikigai is the answer to the question, who am I doing this for? And why does it matter more than the temporary comfort of the habit? For one person, it might be their children, the specific memory of a moment when they couldn't keep up, couldn't be present, couldn't show up the way they wanted to, and the specific image of who they want to be for those children going forward. For another, it's a version of themselves they can see but haven't become yet. Not thinner or richer or more successful, but free. Free from the specific weight of this specific habit that's been living in them for years. Whatever your Ikigai is, it has to be personal enough to sting a little when you say it. It has to be the kind of reason that, when you're standing in front of the fridge at 11 at night or reaching for your phone at 7 in the morning, can actually compete with the pull of the habit. Generic reasons don't compete. I want to be healthier doesn't compete. But I want to be present enough to remember my daughter's childhood. That competes. I want to encourage you right now, before we go further, to pause the video if you need to. Write down the real reason, not the one you'd say in a doctor's office. The one you'd only say to yourself at 3 in the morning. That's your Ikigai. Hold on to it. It's the root that will hold when everything else bends. And when you have it, if you're willing, leave it in the comments below. You don't have to be specific, but writing it publicly is its own kind of commitment. And commitment, even quiet commitment, is where change begins. Let me tell you about a concept that changes the way you think about where to start. In the world of habit research, there's a category of behavior called a keystone habit. The idea was popularized by Charles Duhigg in his research on how change actually propagates through a person's life. And what it reveals is something that sounds almost too convenient to be real. Certain habits, when established, automatically trigger positive changes in completely unrelated areas of your life. Exercise is the most documented keystone habit. People who begin a consistent exercise routine, even a tiny one, even just walking for 15 minutes, frequently report that they spontaneously start eating better without intending to. They start sleeping more consistently. They start making better financial decisions. Their patience with people they love improves. Their work becomes more focused. None of these things were the goal. They happened anyway. Because exercise didn't just change one behavior, it changed the person who was doing the behaviors. This is Kaizen, operating through keystone habits. You pick the smallest possible point of entry. Not the habit that would help you most, necessarily, but the habit that you can actually start today and maintain through the bad days, and you let the compound effect do the rest. The keystone habit is the first domino. You don't have to push all the others. Gravity takes care of it. What's your keystone habit? For some people it's sleep. Fix the sleep, and suddenly the willpower to resist the food or the drink or the scrolling appears, seemingly from nowhere, because willpower isn't actually about willpower. It's about biology. A rested brain makes better decisions. It's not philosophy, it's neuroscience. For others, it's one glass of water in the morning before anything else. Before coffee, before the phone, before the notifications. Just water. And what that tiny act builds, over days and weeks, is the neural architecture of a person who starts their day with intention. The water becomes a signal to the brain. We are doing this deliberately. We are not just reacting today. We have agency. And the brain, which is an extraordinary pattern recognition machine, begins to operate differently because of it. One glass of water. Don't underestimate it. The Japanese didn't build their recovery on massive leaps. They built it on thousands of tiny, perfectly repeated steps, each one just slightly better than the last. There's something that happens around the third or fourth week of a small change that I want to prepare you for, because nobody warns people about it, and it causes a lot of unnecessary quitting. The results are invisible. You've been drinking your water, you've been walking your 15 minutes, you've been putting your phone in the other room at night, and when you look at your body, or your productivity, or your relationship, nothing looks different. And the voice comes back, not the failure voice this time, but a subtler one. The voice of impatience. Is this really doing anything? Maybe I need to add more. Maybe I'm not doing enough. Maybe the small approach isn't enough for my specific problem. This is the moment where most people either quit or overcompensate, adding so much to their routine all at once that they recreate the exact conditions that caused them to fail before. Stay small. The results are happening. They're happening in the neural pathways your brain is quietly rewriting. They're happening in the hormonal signaling of your body as it adjusts to new inputs. They're happening in the slow, invisible accumulation of evidence you're building for yourself. Evidence that you are the kind of person who keeps their word. The Japanese have a term for this kind of patience, and it's the last philosophical pillar I want to bring to you today. Gambaru. Gambaru doesn't translate cleanly. It means something like to persist, to endure, to do one's best, even when the situation is difficult. But its real meaning lives in the context of Japanese culture, in the idea that showing up fully, consistently, without drama, without complaint, even when nothing is going well and nothing seems to be working, is itself a form of excellence. Gambaru is the opposite of giving up when results are delayed. It's the quiet, stubborn act of continuing because the direction is right, regardless of what the mirror shows today. A factory worker, applying Kaizen to their station, doesn't expect to see a transformed production line in a week. They expect to see one small improvement. They apply it. They show up the next day and look for one more. The transformation of the entire line is the accumulation of these moments across months and years. The worker with Gambaru is not anxious about whether it's working. They trust the direction. They trust the method. They continue. This is available to you, not as an attitude you need to manufacture, not as a feeling you need to feel, but as a decision, a quiet, daily decision to take the small step, even when you don't feel like it, especially when you don't feel like it. The days you don't feel like it are the days that count most, because showing up on the good days is easy. Gambaru is what you do on the hard ones. I want to talk about the most dangerous phase of breaking a bad habit, not the beginning, when motivation is still fresh, not the moment of relapse, though that's difficult. The most dangerous phase is the one that happens after you've been doing well for a while. It's the moment when the habit feels under control, when you've gone 3 weeks without the behavior, and it starts to feel like it's simply gone, like you've beaten it, and the hard work is behind you. This is the moment people relax the structures they've built. Stop drinking the water, skip a few walks, stay up late again, tell themselves they've earned a break, and the habit, which never left, which was only quiet, returns. This is not a failure of discipline, it's a misunderstanding of what change requires. The Japanese model of Kaizen doesn't have a finish line, it has a direction, and that direction continues indefinitely, not because change is miserable and ongoing work, but because the tiny habits that replace the old ones are now simply how you live. They're not effort anymore, they're identity. They're not things you do to maintain change, they're things you do because this is who you are now. The shift from effort to identity is the most important transition in this entire process, and you can't rush it. You can't decide you're done because 3 weeks have passed, or 30 days, or even 6 months. The question to ask isn't, have I broken the habit? The question is, who am I now? Because a person who used to smoke but still identifies as a smoker is fighting their habit every single day. But a person who used to smoke and no longer thinks of themselves as a smoker, who has genuinely incorporated "I don't smoke" into their sense of who they are, isn't fighting anything. The fight is over because the identity has changed. Kaizen, when applied consistently over time, builds this identity change so gradually and so quietly that by the time you realize it's happened, the new identity has already taken hold. You are already the person you were trying to become. You just didn't notice the transition because it happened one small step at a time. This is the genius of the system, and it's why it's survived for centuries. Let me give you the complete framework, the way the 5 Japanese philosophies work together, because I want you to leave this video with something you can actually use, not just inspiration that fades by Thursday. The first pillar is Kaizen, the method. 1% better today than yesterday. The smallest possible step in the right direction, repeated without fail. Not because the step will transform you overnight, but because the step, done every day, rewires your brain and builds the evidence of a new identity. The second pillar is Ikigai, the root. The real, personal, embarrassingly specific reason you are doing this. Not a goal, a purpose. The thing that gives the small steps their meaning. Without Ikigai, Kaizen becomes a list of tasks. With Ikigai, it becomes a life. The third pillar is Hara Hachi Bu, the principle of moderation from Okinawa, the region with one of the highest concentrations of centenarians on Earth. Hara Hachi Bu means eating until you're 80% full, but the broader application is this. Don't fill everything to capacity. Leave room. Leave a little unfilled, whether that's your plate, your schedule, your emotional tank, your ambition for the day. The Japanese understanding is that the body and the mind signal satisfaction 20 minutes after the fact. If you wait for the signal before adding more, you almost never need as much as you thought. This principle applied to habit change means don't max out your willpower. Build habits so small that you use maybe 20% of your available discipline on a given day. Leave 80% in reserve for the moments when life is harder than expected. The fourth pillar is Wabi-Sabi, the permission to be imperfect. The understanding that beauty and strength are found not in flawlessness, but in the complete arc of effort, failure, and return. You will stumble, not once, many times. And each time, the practice is not to start over, it's to come back. Just come back, drink the water, take the walk, put the phone down, come back without ceremony, without punishment, without the story about how badly you failed. Just come back. The fifth pillar is Gambaru, the endurance, the quiet refusal to stop, not because you're grinding, not because you're suffering through it, but because you've internalized the direction, and the direction is right, and small, consistent movement in the right direction, sustained over enough time, is the most unstoppable force in human experience. Together, these 5 things are not a habit-breaking system. They are a way of seeing yourself and your life that makes lasting change not just possible but, in time, inevitable. I want to speak directly to the person who's listening to this right now and thinking, this sounds right for someone else, someone with fewer responsibilities, someone with more energy, someone whose situation isn't as complicated, as entrenched, as specific as mine. I've heard this from people carrying every kind of habit you can imagine, and I want to say something that I mean entirely. Your situation is not the exception. The mechanics of how the brain responds to change are not impressed by the severity of your habit or the uniqueness of your circumstances. The brain is the brain. The pattern is the pattern. Kaizen works precisely because it operates below the level of severity. It doesn't need your habit to be minor for the approach to function. It's not calibrated to your habit at all. It's calibrated to your brain. And your brain, no matter what's been running on it, no matter how long, no matter how deeply embedded, your brain can be redirected, but only if you go slowly enough to stay. Intensity feels powerful. Intensity feels like change is happening, but intensity without sustainability is just noise. Loud, dramatic, exhausting noise that ends the same way every time. Slow, quiet, consistent movement in the right direction is what actually rebuilds a life. The challenge I want to leave you with, the same challenge at the heart of Kaizen, is this. What is the smallest change you can make today? Not next Monday. Today. Not a change that impresses anyone. Not a change that signals commitment, or virtue, or seriousness of purpose. The smallest possible change that points you in the right direction. So small that you could do it on a bad day. So small that missing it would feel embarrassing because it's so easy to maintain. So small that your brain doesn't raise an alarm, doesn't mobilize resistance, doesn't even register it as a threat. 1 glass of water, 1 page of a book, 5 minutes of moving your body, 1 fewer drink, the phone in the other room for the first hour of the morning. Whatever it is, and you know what it is, you've probably known for a while, that's where you start. Not because it will fix everything, not because it will make you feel transformed, but because it will give you the only thing that actually builds lasting change. A promise you kept to yourself. And when you've kept that promise for 2 weeks, you come back, you add 1 more thing, then another, and the person who started with 1 glass of water looks up 6 months later and barely recognizes the life they were living before. Not because something dramatic happened, because something small happened, every single day, in the right direction. That's Kaizen. That's how the Japanese destroy bad habits. Not with force, with patience, purpose, and the revolutionary act of doing something very small, every single day, forever. If this changed the way you think about habit change, even slightly, I want to ask you to do two things. First, leave a comment below with the one small thing you're going to start today. Not your full plan, not your transformation goals, just the first step, the smallest one. Write it down here, publicly, and make it real. I read these comments. More importantly, you'll read it tomorrow when you need a reminder. Second, if you know someone who's been trying to break a habit and hitting the same wall over and over again, send them this video. Not because you want to fix them, but because sometimes the right idea at the right moment is the thing that finally makes something click. Kaizen is that idea for a lot of people. Maybe it's that idea for someone you love. I'll see you in the next one. And remember this, you don't have to be better by tomorrow. You just have to be 1% better than today. That's enough. That has always been enough.